So anyway, I want to talk a little bit about adding blurs to things. This is the second part of the tutorial. And I've got it set up the way I want it. The original footage going in here behind. So this was a really quick one. I'd want to add another shape to it. It's really hard edged like this, and it's never going to look quite right. You almost always want to add a blur to things. You know, sometimes, usually I go around 3 for professional stuff. That requires you to really mask around it really well. If it's something huge, you know, or just like, for example, I had, you know, lava, and then that combined, that really slow fall off into ice. So, you know, that was obviously a blur of 200 or so, kind of a transition. But yeah, generally I rest around 3 for professional projects. So let me think. Another thing you can do, yeah, if you go from group, you can go to like the edge, and then you can add a blur wherever you want it. You know, stretch out the edges like that and make blurred out sides. And then since this applies it to the entire shape, that makes it if you're keying multiple stuff. But you can also just, you know, create another roto shape really easily and just apply another switch mat. Another reason to use a switch mat is obviously you can make multiple shapes and insert in there, and then it's only got one mask import. So yeah, you just go layer switch mat. So yeah, you can add blur to it and get you a shape like that. You can just crank it up, show how that looks different. Yeah, and sometimes bigger blurs can work. It also gives you a lot of flexibility. Another trick, I hadn't really done this until my latest project, but I was keying fingers. Fingers are really hard. Fingers around this 3D ball, and I realized it was really hard to key around the hands because the hands were blurring as they moved really fast. But you want to blur the shape as much as you want to kind of mask around it right away, but then you want to blur the shape as much as the hand's moving, and that'll give you a much better look for that. So what's really nice also is that I use a lot of the time, Shake has both quick paint, or yeah, it has roto shapes, but it also has quick paint. So that can really give you that even finer level of detail. I mean, this isn't the best one, but to use it on, this is just an example, but you can go in and, you know, add a quick paint and then go to reveal, and then let's go back to where the keyframe is. You can see, you can go in, this is pretty much frame by frame. Load in the attributes here. You go your brush size, and this one you actually want to leave your thing a little better. I thought, you know, it'd be best to go in here and, you know, really make the hard edges like that. But actually, the more I do it, it's gonna look a lot better if you kind of go a little bigger than you need, and then you kind of have, because you can see like right here the fall off. It's not a pitch black edge, you know. This kind of keeps that fall off on the edge, makes it a lot cleaner, kind of a feather that makes it look a lot better. So this is frame by frame, so you want to really just clean it up with this, and you don't want to rely solely, you know, and you can, you know, also use it for a lot of different stuff, just painting in your scenes or removing stuff like wire like that. That's a really cool tool. Or cloning, I've used this a lot, painting things out of the shots, especially if you're going to blow something up, you want it painted out of the shot. It's just moving the pixels from this one on the right to the one on the left, and I can reposition that with shift and with control. But this is primarily about roto shapes and just some of the techniques. And this isn't really a tutorial about trackers, but those can be really helpful, especially body, and if there's a lot of, if it's not moving that much but the camera is kind of shaking around, you can, well, you can stabilize the camera and then kind of apply it and then bring it back to shaky, and then you can work it so your rotoscope is still in there. But a lot of rotoscoping is kind of by hand. The tracker can help you, but really it's not an answer for everything. And I found what makes it a lot faster, rather than going through one frame at a time, I go around and reposition this every 10, 15, 20 frames. The more you do it, the more you kind of learn when you should keyframe and when you shouldn't keyframe, and kind of watch the movement, and when it's kind of moving in a linear fashion, go in and do every 10, 15, 20, or it could be less depending on how fast it's moving, and then you just want to go in and tweak and tweak and tweak, and then depending on the complexity you might end up going frame by frame, but maybe on this frame you just go in and adjust this edge a little bit, and that's the only difference. Make sure you hit it back to group once you've got rid of your edges, so then you're dragging both at the same time. So this is just kind of an introduction to rotoscoping, kind of to show you some of the workflow, how to do it. Yeah, big thing is just making a lot of shape and a lot of detail, using that in conjunction with the quick paint node. It can be really helpful, and yeah, it takes a lot of work and a lot of deliberation. But one last tip is, as I was doing really professional ones, and you put in a whole ton of points in there, as they're moving around. So I have this arm as part of the roto shape, and maybe he tucks that arm later on, and you're kind of mixing and matching and scrambling them, and kind of trying to push this in. Your shapes are going to change a lot, and if it's really complex, it can be really challenging to kind of try to make it fit with the original shape you created. So I find when it's getting off or not quite right, you can just set a keyframe here. Next one you do, rather than trying to conform it, you just drag it off and create a brand new roto shape and just put it in exactly how you want it, and that can actually be really helpful. I'm now saving more and more time as I'm creating more and more roto shapes, and just keeping them organized, and if you put them off far enough, they won't get in your way. Yeah, one thing, you want to go a frame before, drag this one out, so you have that one there, and then that replaces it, so that can be really helpful. One last really important thing, hold down the command key, then you only moving one side, so you can really make use of points and make it really a lot of different shapes just by dragging around these two things. You can save using a lot of points because you have so much flexibility and control if you just control click. So that's a really important tool, so I thought I'd leave you with that.